अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta from a record-breaking week in Delhi and some other parts of India apparently. We will tell you what records have been broken. They're not the good ones. But before that, let me make two quick announcements. One is next week onwards, Hafta goes back behind the paywall. Election is over. We've given you a lot of free content. And I must also appreciate many of you have contributed very generously. We have had some of our best weeks of subscription, so thank you. But now it's time to go back behind the paywall. It has been free for the last 2 months. When we kept it free, it helped us reach more people. Now that end has been achieved, we want some of those people to come back behind the paywall by paying us. And now for a very important announcement. Newslaundry, that is all of us subscribers, all the people who work here, all the people who have worked here, we have won a very, very important and big award. It is called the WAN IFRA Digital Media Awards, and our category was Best Innovative Digital Product, which was our app. Now, if you haven't already downloaded our app, please do. And most importantly, this app was funded by you subscribers. About 600 of you had chipped in. We had got the funds together and done this app. And many of you actually chipped in on the design because some of you are UI UX because we have some very accomplished subscribers. And the testing was also done by you subscribers only. And to think that this app that has been collaboratively created by all of us won at an international forum, beating many apps from Europe and North America, is something that I'm thrilled and so proud of, and thank you all. So it is all our victory and our subscriber. And of course, when the mail came, initially, I thought that, chalo, Copenhagen jaake I'll accept the award and all. But then I figured in the middle of election, unnecessary kharcha, we said, why don't we have awards collected by subscribers? Because subscribers make this happen. And we have subscribers all over the world. So we identified a subscriber who was in Denmark, Agneta Ghosh. She drove down to Copenhagen for the ceremony, accepted the award on behalf of Newslaundry, and here's a video.
3 finalists are Corporación Medcom Panama, Newslaundry Media Private Limited, India, AB, Norway. And the winner is Newslaundry Media Private Limited, India, for the Newslaundry app. Please welcome onto the stage Agneta Ghosh.
So shout out to the team that actually did the nuts and bolts. Of course, shout out to all of you who made it possible. Chitranshu, who leads our product team. Rishabh, Danish, Aditya, and Dhananjay. They worked on the tech of this. So big shout out to them. And I just think that even bigger things are possible by this collaborative approach. I really think this is an indicator of we can make the biggest media company in the country without ads and without taking any additional VC funds. Just all of us together can pull this off. And this demonstrates it's possible. So thank you, Agneta, for going and accepting it on behalf of Team Newslaundry. And thank you, subscribers, for making this happen. Now let me introduce the panel. In the studio today is Raman Kirpal.
Hi.
Anand Vardhan.
Hello.
Today I have not referred to him as Chief Justice or anything like that. Just plain Anand Vardhan. Joining us online is Hartosh Singh Bal from Delhi.
Hi.
He is, as all of you know, a regular in Hafta and also the editor-in-chief of Caravan. And he has had many other avatars, you know all that. And also joining us, who also has been on Hafta before, is Aruna Chandrashekhar, right? You've been on Hafta before because I was hosting
it's
that.
always been fun. Hi,
Yes,
everyone.
yes.
Yeah.
You're a multimedia investigative journalist. You have a focus on the environment, fossil fuels, climate change, and land conflicts. And you currently work with the climate journalism organization Carbon Brief. And
Yes.
now we'll tell you the record that's been broken is the temperature record in Delhi. Although now the Met Department is saying that there may be something defective in that one.
They'll check. No,
They'll
they
check.
didn't say that. They said they will check.
No, this morning there was an interview on NDTV, and he's saying that wherever the temperature is taken, thermometer has to be in a place where the ground surface is grass, And he said 2-3 things, whereas this one, which recorded 52.8,
52.3.
was where the ground was concrete. So that heat can also reflect. He was giving theories. So he says in all likelihood, that is not an accurate, because it doesn't match with anything else. But anyway, I'm sure Aruna can tell us more on that.
Yeah, I mean, like this is, I mean, of course, people saying the 999 and the air pollution monitors, it's so polluted that, we're managing to break monitors. But I think this thing of like, as you were attributing this explanation to concrete, I think that's pretty telling as well in terms of other factors besides climate change, and a new study that's talking about urbanization and heat. And, we can't necessarily only attribute everything, but there is a strong attribution and strong climate signal for what we're facing. But yeah, concrete is another...
is a contributor. And Hartosh, you have traveled where all this election?
No, actually, I stayed in Delhi. I've been in touch with the reporters as much as possible, because I think going any one specific place is not going to tell me the truth of this election. So to the extent we can rely on our reporters, sample that and build up on that is exactly what we've been trying to do and get out as much stuff as.
But you're not one of those who gets very excited going out and doing the election tourism. It's quite a thing for the longest year. I mean, of course, I'm not fond of it. I do it when I have to, but
I mean, I go out to report when I can. There is always an advantage to being in touch with the ground, but it's also that I think a younger pair of eyes and legs on the ground look at things anew. By this time, I would be going for the 4th, 5th general election. I've covered some 50th assembly election. There's a way in which you go out into people, talk to them, reactions. I think somebody young, fresh in that area with a different sort of insights is more likely to pull out something new, be alert to something more than I would be at this stage, is my guess. There are other things I can do better. There are things on the ground that young reporters can do better. I think we have to realize that as well.
Yeah, including handling the heat. मुझे तो दिल्ली में heat wave हो गई, in spite of me not being on the ground. I got heat stroke on the ground, तो मर ही जाता मैं. I think after a certain age, you should stay home.
I felt the same way this time. And I was like, I'm kind of boring in terms of going. But I mean, I thought I went back to Chhattisgarh and to the same coal district that I go to pretty much for every elections to see how things have changed. Went there in 40°C heat next to a bunch of coal mines, and then realized that, oh my God, I've turned into such a snowflake. I had a lung infection, heat stroke, all of the above. It was fun.
Because it's a fact, it's not heat ज़्यादा नहीं हुई है, हमारी सहने की शक्ति कम हो गई है. वो that was absolutely right when PM Modi said this, and you all made fun of him, you anti-nationals. But let's get into the discussions, and we have two very, at least for me, they're very exciting. I want to know more about this, and we have the best people to tell us about that. But first, here are the headlines. On Wednesday, Delhi's Mungeshpur reported the country's highest ever temperature of recorded 52.3 degrees Celsius. Delhi also crossed 50 apparently, although now it is being debated. We will have some clarity hopefully by tomorrow. An estimated voter turnout of 61.2% was recorded in the 6th phase of polling in the Lok Sabha election last Saturday. Polling for the 7th and final phase of election will take place on the 1st of June, which includes the state of Punjab, about which Hartosh can tell us a lot. Then a massive fire broke out in an indoor game zone in Gujarat's Rajkot city on Saturday, killed 32 people, including children. There have been several arrests post this. And in a similar fire in Delhi, in Vivek Vihar, it was in a hospital for children, and 7 newborns died. There have been 2 arrests on this as well, or not yet?
In both cases, there were no NOC, and they were running it illegally.
Right. So that's not unusual. Then Janta Dal secular MP Prajwal Revanna, who is facing the sexual abuse charges, he uploaded a video that he's very depressed and he has isolated himself because, of course, he has to be depressed because Congress is attacking him. And he has said that he will appear Friday, May 31st before the special investigating team. While we're recording this, it's the 30th of May, Thursday, 11 in the morning. Although I heard from some reporters in Bangalore that he may even reach today. So the police is on alert. Then at least 30 people were killed across Mizoram, Assam, Nagaland and Meghalaya on Tuesday in storm-related incidents. following the landfall of cyclone Remal between West Bengal and Bangladesh. The landfall in Tripura damaged at least 550 houses, leaving over 2,500 people homeless. And this is becoming again a perennial thing, an annual thing in Northeast. Then the Supreme Court on Friday refused to direct the Election Commission of India to publish the booth-wise number of voter turnout and upload copy of Form 17C on its website within 48 hours of polling, saying it cannot do so in the midst of election and adjourn the hearing on pleas. However, post this hearing, the Election Commission on their own uploaded the voter turnout. Is that correct, Hartosh? For the earlier phase and also for the phase that had just got over.
The five phases.
Yeah. And someone asked them, why couldn't they do it earlier? Why were they reluctant to? Did they answer?
No, they haven't. The question of transparency is what is so important here. They are working in an ad hoc manner. They are not giving any rationale for what they are doing. They are not giving us any reasons why something could not be done. They have no answerability. I think it's reached the point where people no longer trust the Election Commission.
Yeah.
This is the lowest in terms of trust and belief that the lower Election Commission has ever had since independence. I mean, I think we can definitely say that.
They stopped having daily press conferences.
Yeah, that also they stopped. In fact,
absolutely.
Answered it in the court hearing. They said that the images could be morphed with the technology.
oh yeah, they had said the morph, correct. He said mischief could happen. That was the
also, they said that it is an impossibility that at the local level it could be manipulated. And also they said that the res judicata, that is the case already being settled in the earlier hearing, and in which the petitioners contested that it was just a mention and not the order. But the Election Commission's lawyer, Maninder Singh, I think, he argued that in the earlier order, Supreme Court had said that there is no need to publish the data very soon. There are other things also we'll
discuss that. Also, I mean, just what Hartosh said, it's been at its worst. For me, one indicator is, every year on some panel or the other, I'm talking to former CEC Qureshi, and he's always, while he is kind of critical, but generally he's like a good bureaucrat. He's generally trusting of the system.
Yeah.
He's saying, yes, there may be problem, but generally, no, this is fine, it'll work. Like, CEC appointment, you have to have served under 3 or 4 different governments, because to be on the Election Commission, you have had to be Chief Secretary. You cannot be Chief Secretary unless you... So generally the person who will come will be an honest... So I told him, I said, because you're trained as a bureaucrat, you're trained to trust the system. And because I am what I am, my default setting is this. But even in the, let's talk about the election, even election, Dr. Qureshi said that, oh my God, I cannot defend this election. This is just the worst. He says the way they are behaving is, here's a clip of that. You can see it. It's behind the paywall, by the way. I mean, I also think, Dr. Qureshi, it is a cultural thing with governments and, present company excluded, bureaucrats not wanting to answer a question. Bhai, the assumption is you are the peak of the pyramid, that you are the top, and you are not answerable to anybody, whereas it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, that is arrogance, because we are answerable. The fact that we are not answerable to the government, to the parliament, to the president, anybody, only to our conscience and the constitution, which puts more onus on us to be transparent.
Then 2 men aged 19 and 24 died when an SUV that was allegedly part of the convoy, well, not really allegedly, it is now pretty much confirmed, it was part of BJP candidate Karan Bhushan Singh, son of Brij Bhushan Singh. It was part of his convoy. It hit their motorcycle in a Karnalganj police station area of Uttar Pradesh's Gonda district. The driver has apparently been arrested. Then in the Pune Porsche crash case, the city police arrested 2 doctors and a staff member of a state-run hospital on Monday for changing the blood samples of the minor driver involved in the accident, replacing it with another sample. And as we are recording this, Shiromani Agarwal, mother of the teenage driver, got her blood sample swapped with his, and now the police is on the lookout for her.
And these doctors, there was a phone conversation between the father of the boy and these 2 doctors, and also this doctor was recommended as for medical superintendent of a government hospital by the area MLA.
Yeah. And also one of these doctors had celebrated the destruction of the masjid and building the temple earlier. That he was one of those as well. Yeah.
I think, Abhinandan, there's a larger issue that comes out because of this forensics here. The forensic machinery in the Indian justice system has always behaved in this manner. We all know it is literally up for sale and manipulation by people in power, which is why our justice machinery is always derailed. I can name a number of important cases where we don't know what really happened because of the things that went wrong in the forensic. Take the Arushi case.
Yeah.
We know that the entire Loya case hinged on the manipulations that were done at the post-mortem level, which we wrote out in detail. The people carrying out the post-mortem were notorious. We have people inside the post-mortem reporting what was done, were notorious for manipulating post-mortem reports. There are people who build careers on doing this, on obliging what kind of forensics the powerful want. And we are only expressing outrage at something that is a daily occurrence in our court system.
Yeah, and also this was basically became such a huge story because you have visuals of a Porsche smashing. If there wasn't CCTV, it would not become such a big story. Visuals matter, right? Then on Saturday, Payal Kapadia became the first Indian director to win the Grand Prix or Grand Prix, I don't know how you pronounce this, the second most prestigious award after the Palme d'Or, which I also don't know how to pronounce, at the Cannes Film Festival, that I know how to pronounce. She won the honor for her debut feature, All We Imagine as Light. After she receives this, she will be back also attending the hearings of her case for protesting. FTII former chairperson Gijendra Chauhan congratulated her and is proud that she's from FTII after he had kicked her out for protesting. Prime Minister congratulated after there is case against her for being anti-national. So all that is very good. Then months after an 18-year-old Dalit youth was allegedly beaten to death by upper caste men in Madhya Pradesh's Sagar district for protesting against his sister's sexual harassment. The woman died on Saturday, and the report that has been filed is that she fell from an ambulance carrying her uncle's body. And this was the most...
I've read harassment is on for almost a year. So we are trying to find more on it, and after elections, yes.
We should do a detailed story on this.
It's a good...
And then on Sunday, Israel conducted airstrikes on a tent camp crowded... Well, it didn't actually conduct the airstrike on the tent camp. They conducted an airstrike, which the claim is that led to some fire. But every day the theory changes. In fact, the latest is that, at least the Israel spokesman says that was being used to stockpile arms and ammunition. That is why it caught fire. It had nothing to do with them. Anyway, the United States on Tuesday said it did not believe Israel's attack on city of Rafah in southern Gaza constituted a major ground operation that crossed any red lines. And in is hafte ki adla badli in Punjab, Congress MLA and former Minister Harminder Singh Jassi joined the BJP. In Bengal, BJP leader Sriya Praveen joined the TMC. And Uttar Pradesh, RLD leader Prashant Kanojia joined the Congress. And gems of Modi this week. Quote, I will foil the plans of India bloc to rob the SCs, STs and OBCs of their rights and divert those to Muslims. And they may remain enslaved and perform mujra to please their vote bank. So the Prime Minister keeps it classy as he always does. On Sunday in Purvanchal's Ghosi, the PM alleged that India Alliance wants to turn the country's majority community into second-class citizens. And then when he was questioned on why some schools in Jharkhand district had changed their weekly holiday from Sunday to Friday. He questioned that they had changed their weekly holiday from Sunday to Friday and claimed that the ruling Jharkhand Mukti Morcha wanted to start fight with Christians. On Wednesday, during an ABP News interview, he claimed that nobody knew of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi outside India before a movie on his life was made. In fact, there's a very good meme I've got, that comedian who was contesting against Modi in Banaras, what's his name? Rangila, Sham Rangila. Someone's made a meme. Nobody knew of Modi before Sham Rangila contested against him in Banaras. So those are the headlines. Let's move to, let's start with, Punjab, Hartosh. Yesterday in a conversation, you very casually mentioned that Amanpreet will probably win. I've already got the name wrong. And I was aghast. Amritpal. Sorry. So, Amritpal will probably win. I was like, hey? So...
no, even our reporter said that.
Yeah. So, Just give us a little bit about the layout. Like, at least most people you speak to, it's a Congress versus AAP fight. BJP stands no chance. Or do they? And Amrit Pal is contesting, please tell me and our audience, under what umbrella, who does he owe allegiance to, or is he like this maverick on his own?
Well, 3 things are important here. One is first, Punjab in particular, let's start with the role of the Election Commission. Look at the date for the election, June 1st, 40th anniversary of Blue Star. One of the people there is Sukhbir Singh Sandhu. He's from Punjab, that he's not aware of the significance of this date. That this will become an election issue the closer we get to polling was bound to happen, that it would affect the Congress is bound to happen. And in areas where Sikh sentiments are stronger, that it would get magnified is bound to happen. That the Election Commission could actually choose this date is almost, I mean, mind-boggling or baffling that they would have done this at this stage. Yeah? But I mean, it all goes into what we are talking of the Election Commission. The second thing about Amrit Pal, he's getting a huge amount of popular support in Khadur Sahib, which is actually the old Taran Taran constituency. This was the heartland of militancy through the period of Punjab. It has voted over and over again for radical candidates who continue to speak against Delhi about what went wrong in the 90s, the human rights violations by the police and other issues. And the biggest responses in this constituency always. Amrit Pal, we know his background, what happened. It's also connected with the drug problem, which is the highest in this constituency. But he's in jail, sitting in
Assam,
in an election where fair-minded independents trying to contest against the Prime Minister suddenly find their nominations cancelled. Amrit Pal has no problems getting his nomination accepted and entering the fray here. Yeah. There are one of the main men sort of backing his campaign was a former member of the Rashtriya Sikh Sangat, the RSS's sort of Sikh wing. That tacitly or not, I am not claiming that Amrit Pal is working with the RSS or the BJP, but it suits the BJP RSS to have a figure like Amrit Pal come back to prominence in Punjab. It suits nobody else at this point of time. So if you combine all these circumstances in this constituency where the major opposition should have been from the Akali Dal, given this is a Panthic constituency, the Akali Dal candidate himself has roots in militancy. He himself was a youth federation leader, Valtoha. After that, he's become basically more, I mean, you can read time after time, this man has continued to be in political life after being declared a bhagoda by the courts. Yeah, and this is actually on record, and he's still contesting. So it is not as if the choices against Amrit Pal are something that inspire confidence in people as well. You combine all this, that I think Amrit Pal has a very good chance. And it suits nobody more than the BJP at this point of time, given, especially in their external negotiations, they keep raising the Khalistan bogey and people tell them nothing is happening in Punjab. Now they'll say, oh, well, there's Amrit Pal. Go ahead.
Right. What do you say? You've spent a lot of time in Punjab. And one more thing, is it, other than Amrit Pal, who is contesting under his own banner, you think it's basically a AAP versus Congress with BJP not standing a chance anywhere? That's something I call. There's some guy called Tandon is opposite Manish Tiwari, and I don't know Smriti Irani, whether she was doing it because she thinks it's a good thing or she want to kill Tandon's chances. Something like Tandon to bahana hai, Prime Minister Modi ko lana hai. How pathetic for a contestant to have that kind of slogan about himself. But yeah, do they have a chance at all?
Especially in Punjab, that's not a slogan. Punjab mein nobody wants Prime Minister Modi ko lana hai, usko to bhagana hai. That is the only slogan that works in Punjab. So that might have worked better. But there are 1 or 2 majority areas they fielded this strange candidate who is pulling some support. So we don't know in Amritsar itself, India's ambassador in Washington, right after leaving his post, becomes the candidate from Amritsar. Again, I am not going to draw too many theories, but in Punjab, these things come up for doubt. This was the man who was ambassador through the Niger killing periods in US. Right after he relinquishes his post, he's put into a candidature by the BJP in the Sikh heartland of Punjab. He comes from a distinguished SGPC Panthik family, so he is drawing some popular support. So he's not totally out of the race by any means. So there are a few places where the BJP is in the contest, but by and large, it is an AAP versus Congress fight with maybe Sukhbir Badal's wife, Harsimran, actually doing
Right.
enough to maybe try and retain that. She's also facing there. So there is a number of, because of these timings and what has happened in Punjab, Famu, she's facing one of the sons of Indira Gandhi's assassins also. They're not in that constituency, a neighboring constituency. So there are a number of candidates like that in Punjab.
So just to give
Punjab always, despite its size, is interesting enough.
Yeah. It has 13 MPs that represent a state in the Lok Sabha. And right now, in the current, which is the 17th Lok Sabha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are from the Congress.
Congress, yeah.
And from the Shiromani Akali Dal, there are 3. And there are 2 from the BJP. So that's where it stands right now. Now, before we come to the climate aspect, I'd just like to know, since you did go back to Chhattisgarh, Aruna, even that has 13, out of which 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 are from 11 are from the BJP and 2 from the Congress. What did you see when you went back to Chhattisgarh this time? You think it's going to be a repeat of 11 out of 13 for the BJP or 13 out of 13 as some members of the BJP are claiming?
Look, I'm not a seat-tallying kind of person and not good at projecting what this is like. But in terms of both sentiment, there's obvious anger because they've voted in. You had, again, at the state government, it's been yo-yoing between, a long BJP reign, support for that, then people who voted for the Congress at the state. There was a lot of promises in terms of, resolving Adani's mining or promising to stop that or restrict that in the Hasdeo Arun forest. And then you see the reverse that's happening. So you've seen people who've mobilized and thought of whether there is change possible. I think most people are frustrated in terms of the fact that, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha will continue to be sacrifice zones no matter what the party. And at this point, at least, and they've also been seeing repression of strikes before you could possibly stop mining or production or dispatch to get leaders to listen to you. They've been seeing that repression. But I think especially at this time, what people in mining areas were mobilizing to sort of, and it's different in places where there's already mining. People were mostly talking about, let us pick a candidate who will actually listen to us. And in that sense, the BJP MP did, or the hopeful did show up to listen to people and talking about, whereas the Congress didn't. And that was what thousands of people who are living next to some of the countries on Asia's biggest mines were like, we will lend support to people who show up for us because we seem to be kicked around. So now we can only count on local promises. In the Hasdeo Arun, in Sarguja and various other areas, most of the conversation was about, this thing of being letting down and also looking to support Adivasi candidates as a change. But at the same time, they were also still making up their minds. So
there are two of 4 reserved seats in Chhattisgarh, if I'm not wrong, for tribes.
And I think it's going to be an interesting contest to see where that eventually swings. But I think the prominent frustration that neither party, when it has been in power, has fully addressed people's needs there, and that sort of frustration that it's not going to get better. As long as you're going to have natural resources, you will be used as a sort of either the money bags for a party or the one source
the mining issue comes up every now and then. I remember, I think it was 2013 or 14, if I'm not wrong, the Nyamgiri Hills in Odisha, it became a big thing. Vedanta Agarwal, right? Vedanta's owner, that guy who suddenly became
Anil Agarwal.
Anil, he was everywhere.
Me on Twitter, but anyway,
He was suddenly everywhere. He was like the new, Ambani, because he was doing these events, he was attending these award functions, etc. And I remember a big thing, the Nyamgiri tribals actually blocked that project. Now that created a lot of noise, but then what happens? Is Vedanta still there, or
Vedanta's refinery is still very much in the foothills, and you've also been seeing increased repression of the movement itself. Basically, they found another mine in a neighboring area, so it's like, okay, we won't here's the Supreme Court has said this is revolutionary. Okay, consent for the first time that we accept people's right to say no, but then you're going and getting bauxite from neighboring deposits, or neighboring areas which have been again, and that has been expanding as well. So you just push the problem to a different place, which has had less of engagement and less, attention. So that isn't stopping, particularly now that bauxite is also one of those is a critical transition mineral. So you've got that halo also to add to it. So yeah, bauxite brings all the boys to the yard. Sadly, to paraphrase.
Speaking to
actually, that connects up with what happened because Vedanta hasn't disappeared. The Sterlite massacre in Tamil Nadu was directly connected with copper smelting. It was basically a Vedanta operation where the police cooperated with this to clamp down on the protesters. 12 or 13 people were killed in police firing at that point of time. That is just a few years back.
Yeah.
So in fact, we will be discussing, we haven't discussed Odisha on Hafta at all, but we will be discussing it in the special live coverage of the election results on the 4th. We'll start 8 in the morning. 5 organizations are coming together like we have twice before, which include the News Minute, Scroll, The Wire, Caravan and Newslaundry. You will have experts, independent voices who don't spare anyone like Hartosh, and we will have people from the other organizations as well. It is the only non-sponsored ad-free election day coverage you're going to see, the results day coverage. And we can do this because you support us. So there is a link in the show notes of this. Please click on that link and contribute. We'd like to make this an event where we can get more and more resources. I'll tell you right now, we will not have, although the credibility of those is questionable, live results coming in, because I spoke to a few people who say some of that is just payload, but it keeps people engaged. So if we want to actually commission a credible agency, it costs a lot of money. If we can make that much money this time, we shall, buy that data. If we can't, at least you'll get the most interesting and informed analysis. So do contribute. This is election day results, and it's called Elections Live Lok Sabha 2024. Please do contribute. So we'll be talking about Odisha there as well. So if I can just come to the rest, the 2 states that we just spoke about, Chhattisgarh and Punjab, what do you make of it? At least the people in Punjab who I spoke to, they were after the farmers' protest, even the 1 or 2 seats that SAD or BJP would get, they said it's highly unlikely that they'll get it. It is now basically between AAP and Congress. Do you think that's the case?
If you just look at, the situation in 2019 and then 22 when the assembly elections were happened, Congress had they had polled 55% of the votes, in 2019. BJP 9%. BSP, which was pretty strong when I say, they used to get 9 to 10%, but now they also came down to 2% in 2019. And Aam Aadmi Party was also 2%.
That time.
But in 2022, if you look at the assembly elections, so they rested, the seats, maximum seats from Akali Dal, and then of course around 22 seats from Congress. So that and now they are ruling for the past 1.5 years. Now there is some kind of anti-incumbency even against Aam Aadmi Party.
Okay. So they may not benefit that easily.
So they will be benefited, and which they have put it on test. Their freebies schemes or their welfare schemes, like electricity free, and they have given money to women. So if that plays on the minds of the people, then I think they stand a chance. But I think Congress is in the driver's seat. And these farmers
discontent to the BJP.
60%.
They're still sitting there even as we speak.
We have done a story.
We've done a report on that.
So I think the Congress and the fight is between the two. But having said that, BJP, they enjoy this popularity in the cities, especially among the Hindus. And in Amritsar, as Hartosh said, this guy stands a chance. We have done one story where they have painted the entire city, you know, with this, they put up all those posters, जो राम को लाए हैं वही हम उनको
In
लाएंगे
Punjab?
in Punjab. So
Achha, I'm
all
not sure
seven
how.
in Sanatani Dharma, we have done. In fact, you know, there's one resident over there who happened to be our subscriber also. So she filed a complaint with the election commission
Oh, I
that
see.
such
Okay.
posters have come up. So they should, and the EC rejected her application, and Basant by chance, you know, met her and she said she.
So we have that story as
So
well.
we have that story as well.
That's interesting. In fact, this whole farmers issue till a few weeks ago when I was driving to Punjab, and suddenly they told me that Panipat se you have to go off on the right and then ghoom ke jao. I was like, why? They said the farmers have blocked. I was like, since when? They said, so because I had press written on my car, so the cop says, तब से बैठे हैं आप लोग दिखाते नहीं. मैंने कहा अच्छा sorry, मुझे idea नहीं था. But
Situation is a bit fluid, but I think maybe Congress and AAP, they are going to get the maximum. And of course, you have Amrit Pal Singh.
yeah, dude,
And
that is something.
Ben Singh's son also is contesting in the neighboring.
Hmm.
He has lost in the past.
Achha, this is not his first time.
Not first time. He has lost in the past.
Bayan
But-
Singh is one of the assassins of
Yeah.
Prime Minister
Yeah,
Indira Gandhi.
So, but this time they say that he is, you know, he's
Has a better
asking for
chance.
vote for this sacrilege, you know, that
On that
the
front.
father sacrifice it.
So, Anand, what do you make of both these states? Are they as interesting as you're making them out to be?
No, first a few corrections as far as I know about the data set. In 2019, Congress got 41% vote in Punjab, and AAP I think got 7% and won the Sangrur seat, the lone
One seat.
First, the nature of contest in Punjab has changed. One major change is the triangular fight in 2019 is now quadrangular because of the parting of ways between Shiromani Akali Dal and BJP. So if the Shiromani Akali Dal, if 2019, though this can be deceptive indicators, it got 28% seats, 28% vote share, but 2 seats only. BJP got 2 seats for 9% vote share, right? As far as I remember. So this was one. Congress is another beneficiary because of 2 incumbency which it can bank on. One is the natural anti-incumbency of 10 years at the center and the 2-year-old government at the state level. So 2 anti-incumbencies it has.
Congress is insulated from both those.
Both those. So it has that shield. Also, sometimes your strengths can be your weaknesses. So maybe AAP government in overcommitted. They are in their campaign. They are making this issue of that 1,000 rupees. They have been unable to keep that promise. So this is how and more details about constituency wise I don't have. I have just an overview of this one.
But Hartosh, just last thing about Punjab before I'd like to come to the climate aspect of the discussion today also, is Amrinder Singh, other than this one video that I saw where he was hanging around behind the Prime Minister while he was waving, he's altogether missing from this campaign, right?
He's supposed to be unwell. He hasn't, well, that's not a surprise that he hasn't campaigned for Purneet. They really are not seen together much in any case. But she did switch parties when he did. He has not played a part in this campaign. They've used his posters a few places. Look, the BJP's entire strategy was that it's a reflection of how badly they were affected by the farm protests, that they tried to put an entirely Sikh and particularly a Jat Sikh or face to their entire leadership, which was not the case. They are trying to contest in Punjab by becoming a Sikh party more than anything else. Amrinder came in. Sunil Jhakad, yes, a Hindu, but he's a Jat from the Abor Fazilka region. They've got in Purneet. They're getting Sandhu to contest from Amritsar. So at least they provided the guise of Sikh representation this time in some senses. Their equation with the Sikhs has always been fraught. Unlike with Muslims, the BJP desperately wants the Sikhs to be on their side. And the Sikhs want nothing to do with the BJP. They'd rather have anything else, despite the BJP pointing out historical traumas, etc. The Sikhs dislike the BJP and Narendra Modi far more than they dislike anything about the
Why is
Congress
that?
today. Look, it basically boils down to issues of identity, the idea of a Hindu Rashtra, the idea of a Hindu nation. And in the BJP's view, this Hindu nation includes Sikhs because they are Hindus. The Sikhs want no part of that. They can basically, I mean, if you want to boil it down to simple language, they want to tell the BJP here, they'll crumple up this idea of a Hindu nation and stuff it wherever it can be stuffed as far as the BJP is concerned. And that is the kind of opposition the BJP faces in Punjab that it will never be able to overcome by changing a few faces here or there. These are questions of your core identification of your being, of who you are, and you are not part of a Hindu nation, whatever the BJP may want.
I mean, that's all okay, but Prime Minister Modi का बहुत पुराना निजी नाता है सिखों से.
हाँ, वो तो चाचा है ना किसी
पंज प्यारे जो थे उनमें से उन पंज प्यारों में से एक नरेंद्र मोदी के कुछ लगते थे. Who would have thought?
That was one of the Panch Pyaras from Gujarat. But Modi is almost pathetic in his desire to be seen as acceptable among the Sikhs. He keeps trying.
Also, scheduled caste, which is a very significant
in Punjab
electoral component of Punjab's voter demography. So, BJP has also been trying to woo that. That is also a segment which should have been the natural territory of BSP, which once promised to be a considerable electoral force in Punjab, but has not lived up to its potential. But it's also the fifth player, BSP, for whatever standing it has.
But still a player after so many years, which says something.
So it's a mistake to look at the scheduled caste as a separate political category in Punjab. 33%, the largest part of the population is Dalit. But the Dalit population does not come together as one. I think Kanshi Ram was the last person who did manage to get that kind of support. Punjab, the Sikh portion of the Dalits, they will do anything but ever vote for the BJP. So there is no identification across this. The same division that exists in every other caste across Sikh and Hindu lines, urban and rural, very much exists among the Dalits as well. They have traditionally voted either for the Akalis or the Congress. And the AAP has tried to make inroads. Channi is standing as a Sikh Dalit candidate, is likely to win in his seat. He was put up as chief minister for a while. So the Dalits as a separate bloc which the BJP can appeal to is not an idea.
They can't
that
be
has any
consolidated in Punjab, basically.
And the two of the AAP MPs, now they have defected to Congress, one to Congress and another to BJP.
Rana Sodhi is fighting from the BJP, right? He used to be with the Congress at one point, is that right?
Yeah, of course, very much. So they go around. There are certain money bags who can be with any party. Basically, they can fight their own elections.
Okay, now coming to the matter that is raising heat, let me come up with some lame puns as if I belong in broadcast. So, in the heat of the election, even the temperature is soaring. As campaigning touches new red hot areas, so does... Okay, that's enough. I've exhausted my puns.
Everyone's having fun with this thing.
Yeah.
Might as well just
So now,
an Ellie song or something like that. Yeah.
It is, 50 is unthinkable. I remember when the last summer that I remember was really bad. I don't know whether you have the data on your fingertips since you cover climate. I remember I was a reporter with Newstrack. It's probably 96 or 97. And I remember clearly because when we used to go out and Aaj Tak had just started, so we were required to do piece to cameras. Before that, piece to cameras weren't a thing. And I used to go to Bengali market, do my piece to camera, and I used to sit inside Bengali market for 10 minutes. So the sweat dries and I don't have a drenched shirt. Then quickly go out, do it in one take and then head back to office. Because if I stood outside for more than that one take, the shirt would be wet again. And I don't recall that kind of heat after that. Of course, I stopped reporting also. But this heat
another
is
metric could be wet shirt temperature.
also made now. I think as you get older, you sweat also less. But what is the cause of this? Because the Met Department, I remember clearly because I said that in the Hafta, had predicted this year the summer is going to be exceptionally hot in Bengal. Records may break. That said, Delhi will not be so bad. They got it wrong completely.
I mean, it's an El Nino year, and that is El Nino is a problem child. Over and above the record levels of warming, you're seeing climate scientists lose their cools. Just the amount of bar graphs and seeing, the deviations in temperature, also seeing the record levels of like emissions. So we are seeing whether it's ocean heat and coral bleaching that's happening. You're having warmer oceans than ever. You're seeing in terms of land temperatures now, especially. There's a group that's called the World Weather Attribution Group that looks at and that gives you causes of like, okay, is it really climate change versus someone just going and pinning that blame? But in their assessment this year, what they've said is, in South Asia, and of course, where there was also, extreme heat in West Asia, in Gaza. So whatever carnage you're seeing, add that to extreme temperatures. But what they found in their assessment, especially in South Asia, is that climate change made extreme heat in the region about 45 times more likely. We are saying it made these extreme temperatures around 45 times more likely and 0.85 C hotter. So, the previous assessment, which was in the 2022 heat wave, which you will remember, it made it 30 times more likely.
Right.
But there's also like a study which just came out from IIT Bhubaneswar, which shows that Indian cities are warming at almost twice the rate of the rest of the country, with urbanization alone responsible for 60% of that trend. So, so that's also
so when you say urbanization contributes to it, are you saying that because of the green cover going and concrete being used, so let's say urbanization would happen with a different technology? Because I know a few people who recently have built homes in Rajasthan, but they have used, instead of the kiln bricks, mud bricks, and they claim that the air condition use has gone down, etc., etc. Suppose urbanization were to happen, but not with concrete and glass, would that make a difference?
Yes, cities have an extremely important role to play, and also how you build, how you decide to, like, for instance, someone was also pointing out, I come from Vizag, so Andhra summers, and grew up there. They're now coming up with a new sort of trade center, and the first image that they share of like an architect's building thing is an entirely glass building. We love that. We love glass and chrome, and that's perhaps the worst thing for and it's also going to drive up air conditioning use, which is also going to be reliant on coal, which is also making the problem worse. So fighting fire with fire, but cities can play a really important role. Also, the fact that they have, people might say that yes, of course, urbanization is bad, but urbanization is also kind of good because you have density is good in terms of putting resources versus sending it to far off or like make some of those challenges as well. So they say that urbanization is kind of good, but also how we are doing it, and that needs to fundamentally change. Like again, I live in Bombay. The kind of green spaces are confined to 2 or 3 posh neighborhoods. There is such limited space. And of course, you've seen the whole tree cutting for the new parliament, various other fun things that the government likes to do in Delhi. Cities can also play a role. Why not? Yeah.
But Delhi is way more greener than any other city. But also the reason why they use so much of metal and glass is because from a builder's point of view, it is the most cost efficient, right? Because those mud bricks, you have to set up a unit there. It'll take so long. Whereas prefab, the structure is up in like 15 days, with the steel on top of steel, and you just put glass and that's done. As opposed to, it would take, I don't know how much longer if you used other materials. But, just
before we get into that, let's talk about workers in these sorts of units. Like imagine working in a brick kiln in this heat. Now, Down to Earth has done a series, of course, right now on, who are these workers and who are facing this. This is very much in terms of you can insulate yourself with air conditioning and with air purifiers and working from home and never really going out and experiencing any of these temperatures. But yeah, I mean, the sorts of things that are,
actually,
the workers who are facing the worst of this.
The traditional bricks that are apparently, which traditionally in Rajasthan that they used to make old forts and all with, are not actually baked in a kiln. They are made of that mud that is available in and around Jaipur. It is, wet. It is compressed, then put out in the sun, wet, compressed, put out in the sun. And of course, you have to season for a while. And the stuff that they put outside are these big drums of limestone. Because I went to one of these places where they were building this huge farmhouse using, of course, it took about twice as long as it would have normally taken. And they have these big limes, lime water thing. They leave it there. It is like stirred every 2-3 days. Then it's left and it's stirred every 2-3 days. And then it is like seasoned like that. And then they put it. And the same thing, the slanting roofs, the wood, I think, there is a certain, they kind of cook it, or I don't know what they do with it. They season it, bury it under the sand. It happens in Jodhpur. But the cost of that in terms of time is so long that if I were to make a commercial building, I'd finish in maybe 4 months and sell the flats, have my money, make 8 months of interest, as opposed to spend another 8 months building it. So I think the incentives are all wrong in speed. You know what I'm saying? That's what kind of messes up.
Introduces, tell the Lodhas some of the intricacies of these processes. And I think especially like whether it's builders, whether it's, why don't you have panels on every roof? Why don't you have heat pumps? I think people are resistant to these ideas. But no matter how much, also there is a certain amount of heat that is now going to be locked in with these degrees of warming. So you can sort of definitely in terms of the changes that you make, and considering that huge proportions of India's infrastructure is left to be built, right? And that is especially going to be in India's cities. There are ways to do this the right way.
We got to change the technology. Otherwise, it's just because there's a lot of urbanization that's going to happen in India, whether we like it or not. How it happens is something that I guess one can influence, right?
But yeah, we also have to deal with the realities of who's going to build this, right? You're talking about, again, that's the construction workers, and a new idea said that over 70% of all workers globally are exposed to excessive heat. 75% of that's a World Bank estimate of India's workforce is exposed to heat conditions.
Yeah, in fact,
so how are you factoring that? In terms of the manifestos, none of the manifestos mention heat. And in terms of extreme weather, this time at least to sort of adhere to and to talk about extreme weather, the only sort of phenomenon coastal communities get a mention. You're talking about, and that's somewhere that's in there. And landslides in Himachal Pradesh, and that was close enough to political parties to realize, okay, this is an important block. Considering so much output was affected last year, you've got entire hydro plants being washed away. So that's there in manifestos somewhere mentioned both by the Congress as well as the CPI. But the BJP has also talked about landslides in the Himachal and the Himalayan region. Now, where else is it? Coal is, of course, completely missing. So anything around fossil fuels is missing from most parties except for the CPI, which is like, give us back all the unexplored coal blocks. So it's interesting. And also it's interesting that the BJP's manifesto doesn't mention forest rights at all. The word rights, I think, appears once.
The word Modi appears often enough. But Hartosh, I know you're here for an hour, but before you go, please, comment on this. But the political aspect, and I know you'll be unforgiving to both. This extreme heat has caused apparently some water shortage in Delhi, and Atishi had a press conference saying that Haryana releases a certain amount of water to Delhi, and they have purposely not released it this time because of election. They want to blame. Hartosh, who do you believe, Haryana or Delhi?
This game happens each time, and it's difficult to say, because you also have to realize, while there is political one-man upmanship, there is also demand in either state. Haryana will cater to its local demand before it releases to Delhi. It is not bound by the same thing. The AAP would like to shift blame to that. And the problem actually in most of these things, we fail to address the government part of it. Yeah, we can talk about materials, etc., what can be done at homes. But look, when there is high pollution in Delhi, construction is halted. Why is construction halted? Because the well-to-do will be breathing construction air. When temperatures have reached the point where it is inhuman to actually be working out there, construction doesn't get halted. Why over this period of this heat wave should construction not come to a stop for a period of 10-15 days with compensatory allowances? Because since Mr. Modi and Mr. Kejriwal believe greatly in helping people out at the drop of a hat in their manifesto, why not at this point of time do you intervene to do this with labor and workers at this point of time? Doesn't happen. And the third is just basically legislation. Look at Delhi, you look at the heat temperatures across the centers we monitor. New Delhi and South Delhi have the greatest green cover. You look at large heat days, the number of heat days measured in Safdarjung as compared to Narela on the Rajasthan border, you'll find that it is far worse in that direction. Now, townships like Gurgaon and Noida are being developed all across Delhi, and Delhi has no natural limits to its expansion. It's one of the world's largest urban Why do we not at least just legislatively specify that there is a certain percentage of green cover per locality
that has to be there?
exist?
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, that this year Nitin Gadkari fell prey to a heat stroke, and considering he's also been one who's been pushing linear projects that seem to bypass forest clearances and have led to massive expansion, I think it's interesting to that.
I think that's too complicated a connection for him to make even himself. But
I mean, just for us nerdy observers being like, okay, well,
yeah, the irony,
him and Shah Rukh Khan.
The irony only missed on them. But when the Qatar World Cup happened, I remember BBC ran this documentary film, and in fact, I had recommended it on Hafta only, on the conditions under which many of these stadiums were made. And they had spoken to a lot of these workers are from Nepal, and as just Nepal is cold, it's up in the Himalayas. So they had interviewed many guys who've gone back. One of them walks with a permanent limp. They have kidney issues because of the extreme dehydration. Their kidney fails, etc. Medical. But because of the World Cup and Qatar conditions, it became a big deal, which BBC did a documentary film. It was watched, it was discussed even in discussions. But here in Delhi, that is normal. That is not a World Cup phenomena. Those conditions that those guys are working in are normal conditions here. But it's, as Hartosh said, it is just seen as par for the course. There's no special, at times like this, of course, you can't expect people to work in this.
Today, the instructions are given that at the construction sites, the laborers should, they should not work between 12 and 3. And all these contractors will not cut their salaries. So today,
is that right?
Today the instruction has come.
It needs to be a bit more. I think
is that there's not enough international coverage. I think that's a policy. I think there's plenty and more. You will have most international outlets are coming here making sorts of heat maps. I work for an international outlet. I think there is plenty of, especially when it comes to either to heat or to coal, I think those are things that get plenty of coverage. But I think the other question is accountability, right? It's much harder to because then you're like, yes, this is the global north's emissions. You see the US not wanting to back down. Today it made news that, okay, they finally hit their 100 billion target of providing finance to the South. And it's like, we are now we're talking in terms of trillions of what it will take to adapt. Right. So that billion number is mostly loans which are being repackaged. So it's that you're pushing debt onto countries when they are facing costs of this and going further and further into this. And then you have the local causes, then you've got urbanization, then you've got politicians building. And of course, in the middle of all of this, it's that, and that I think is a problem where it becomes difficult for people to pin the blame. So a lot of people, so there is no accountability that you see in environmental or in climate-based cases. But that is also changing. People are taking these attribution cases to court. There is increasing litigation. I thought it was interesting with the Supreme Court saying that, okay, well, climate change and right to health and life and so on. I mean, that came across in the court, in a judgment where it sacrificed the great Indian bustard for solar development and then seemed to have this position. But yeah, I think that's a challenge in terms of looking at who to hold accountable, and it's a number of actors across the line. I think it must, like being able to do that is what's sort of necessary at this point.
Right. So before we say goodbye to our guests, Hartosh, any closing comments, analysis you want to give on election-related stuff before you give us your recommendation of the week that will enrich the lives of our listeners?
I think all election-related analysis can now well wait till the 4th.
All right, so do log in. We'll start off at 8th morning. I think the first slot is Hartosh is going to be on the panel. It is going to be hosted by Dhanya Rajendran. Supriya will be from Scroll, and Seema Chishti from The Wire, and probably Manisha from Newslaundry. So do check in.
So yeah, no such.
And any recommendation, any article from Caravan that you think is worthy of a mention that we can provide the link to in our show notes that our audience can click on and access?
Well, in this issue, we have the previous issue or the cover issue, we have a pretty detailed report from UP by Tusha Mittal on what has been happening to Christians in UP. And it is very much worth a report because it's a kind of story on people think that they know what is happening. And the question of Christians gets sort of overshadowed by what is happening to Muslims. That district after district, FIR after FIR, what you're finding is that, a conversion complaint on the basis of which the police is harassing Christians has to be filed by the person affected.
Right.
In most of these FIRs, you find the complaints have been filed by local leaders of Sangh organizations, including Bajrang Dal. You think it is even remotely plausible that the Christian pastors, often not upper caste, are going around and catching hold of the first Bajrang Dal leader they say, let's convert you to Christianity. And that is the basis for the police complaints on which the harassment is at a huge degree. It is torture in custody. It is a rampant attempt to forbid the practice of religion in any sense. And this happens in such a scale. In this government, to fight against these cases is a mandate for the police, so more such cases are registered. And this is par for the course in Modi's India, basically, where everything is hunky-dory as far as most people who go to
and Yogi's UP. That double engine. It's a double engine.
Modi, it is for us to say who is going to displace whom. They are two faces of the same phenomena of the bigotry that threatens our very existence as a nation.
Right. Thanks, Hartosh. Look forward to seeing you on the 4th. Please do make it on time for the idli and sambar before we...
Well, also, you promised some chicken chettinad as well.
I promised chicken chettinad because some of our earlier when we had that, they said, why is there only veg food for the panelists during lunch break? So I was like, okay, we'll get non-veg this time. Okay, thanks.
Maybe we can even get more ambitious with the non-veg the next time. But in the meantime, let's cover the elections.
And first I thought, should we have tandoori chicken? I was like, there are appams, there's dosa. Like, how can we get butter chicken? Like, it doesn't go. So we have to get a chicken chettinad. So next time the whole menu has to be North Indian then. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Great being here.
Right.
Okay. And this time I found out you pay, but if I add up all my appearances, I think
you must
put in a very flat bill. Can I add up a past sort of appearances as well?
Well, you can add up your appearances from 2023 onwards. Before that, then we'll go bankrupt.
I see. That's where you've tapered off my coming to the show.
Yes. It's a very small amount, but because our subscribers have been so generous, we can afford to give, even if it's a very tuchha amount, to our wonderful panelists. It is not worthy of the time that they spend. But if you give us more subscription, then we can at least reward them because they come and tell us and you so much. And that has got to be worth something.
One last thing, which you promised me, but I don't think you are revealing to your viewers, readers, but you will tell me the inside story of the Maliwal case. Yeah? privately.
Done.
Okay. See you.
Okay, see you. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
And Aruna, no, Aruna, you have to give us your recommendation for the week. It says bye for Hartosh. He has to go. Yeah.
I mean, also just wanted to tell listeners that some of the panelists also contribute to Newslaundry and to
You
election
see?
2024. Despite being we take a fee and we also contribute and we also quote Newslaundry in our reports. So
Not
yeah,
just that, some of people who appear, they give more to Newslaundry than we give them. So it's a loss-making venture for them. But such is the generosity of people. You know, what can I say? Yes, Aruna.
yeah, it's a very precious cycle. So yeah, what have I been watching and listening to? I would highly recommend. I mean, it's a film called Perfect Days, made by Wim Wenders, and it's said he was commissioned to make a film about Tokyo's toilets, and decided that okay, like I can do this, but I can also shoot in only 1 week. But why don't I make an entire film? And it's about this guy who goes about cleaning Tokyo's toilets, but then he also listens to some really cool music. And if any of you are craving the analog life of listening to tapes and doing meditative things, and yeah, I think it's a really cool film, worth watching. It's on Mubi, I know, kind of edgy and otherwise. I've also been listening to this song called IMF by Seon Kuti. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, then please approach Gayatri Spivak. But yeah, it's been a really fun song to listen to. It was also something that one of my mentors who worked at this organization, Environics, was listening to when the ED was harassing him. So while filing responses to them, it's like, this is what is helping me stay up at night and keep one eye open. So yeah, I've been listening to that on loop while writing about debt and nature and the whole debt crisis. So it's a really fun song.
Great. Thanks so much, Aruna. Have a fantastic week and weekend, and hope to see you again soon sometime.
Thank you so much, and good luck. I will be tuned in.
Thank
Stay
you.
tuned. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. And you take your pointers from our wonderful panelists who contribute. Click on the link and contribute to this election coverage, because we don't take sponsorships from anybody. Before we get on the emails, Anand, one of the states, I mean, we've discussed it in Hafta, and of course, anything else that you want to contribute to, you can. Two things I want to ask you since you were coming. One is this Supreme Court ruling on the Election Commission. What do you make of it? Because even, people who are partisan, who are very against the BJP, some of them have said that it would be kind of tricky for the Supreme Court to get in the middle of an election on the function of our constitutional body. It's fraught with risk and precedent. So I don't know if you have read the full order, but I'm sure you would have a better idea than me for sure. Do you think it was a bit, irrespective of what you may think of the government, in the midst of an election to go to the Supreme Court and ask them to intervene in how they're conducting the election, or let it go whether you are dissatisfied or not? Later, it can be discussed in a democratic fashion. What is your take on the order, the reasoning behind it? And why did the ECI then do what they've been asked to do for the longest time, but they weren't doing, and now they've done it, even though the Supreme Court didn't say?
No, the publication of voter turnout data, delay in it is not very unprecedented. 1 or 2 days they take, because in the morning papers you see that the final data would be released later. But they give they collate it with returning officers, which are district magistrates in different districts. Now, the reason Supreme Court has given is similar to what it is very important to remember, that Election Commission had the choice in 2013 to make MCC
legally
binding, and it didn't do that. And the reasoning they gave is two. First important reasoning with Supreme Court also is that during the election...
MCC, Anand, means Model Code of Conduct.
That if we go with punitive measures for MCC violation, then it would be a litigation cycle, not an election cycle. Because the aggrieved party will go to the court and we would be stuck in the process. Then our election calendar cannot be maintained. Second is that suppose we target some important figure, say Prime Minister or some President of National Party or some key leaders. Now, if we remove them from the party, from the scene
Campaign.
only, then what's the election? Means you cannot target everyone. And so what they said that, then I am talking about 2013, that the Representation of People Act 1951, which can have punitive measures, we cannot tag it with MCC. Second is that what they can do is a very extreme step, that is 1968 election symbol orders, that act mandates that the registration of the party can be cancelled if there is a grave violation. Now, they said Election Commission in 2013 that would be also a very grave thing to do. So, because of this, a lot of people expect that for this statement, this punitive measures should be done. But it is well within Election Commission's rules to not do that. So they had this opportunity, but they let it go. I am talking of 2013. Second is that as you said about your interview with Mr. Qureshi, that for a very logistical operation of this scale, there would be flaws. There would be a lot of flaws in it. There may be also some instances of favoritism, but the overall, to say that overall there is a conspiratorial design and to draw conclusions is sensationalist, while the Election Commission's defense of it on its website, or you have said that they have done away with press conference, but other tools they try to defend. So it would be cold light of bureaucratic reasoning, their language. So it would not have the same force. So I think the reach out program of Election Commission is not, its game is not very
up to the mark.
Because the sensationalist allegations are always sensationalist. So, but the defense is always bureaucratic, very dry language that see these things are there. So I think the reach out program should be stronger from Election Commission. These two things.
And
also the as Mr. Qureshi said, he was right that see in Article 324 says that the president will appoint the commissioner,
Right.
and the parliament has to legislate, but parliament never legislated. So Supreme Court as an interim measure said that this should be the mechanism. But executive power, which already is with the government, no government would give it to you, the judiciary, and not and let alone a strong government with a strong majority. So I think this thing that now the Election Commission is chosen, but it has always been an executive pick, election commissioners.
So, and I think one of the things that, again, it's logistically difficult, because if the partisanship that you're talking about is happening at a, granular level, like for example, the Manoj Tiwari video, where he's inside and the cops are protecting him. Now, that's Delhi police. For technically during the election, the Election Commission has jurisdiction over, the police, etc. But dude, effectively, once election is over, they'll report back to the Home Minister. No, so for them to, be protecting a sitting MP who has gone inside a booth in violation. Now that guy is not a DG police. He must be some local SHO, whatever. For Election Commission to payload on every, the sense of responsibility in public life is so limited. A two-time MP like Manoj Tiwari, although he's a buffoon, I mean, his videos have demonstrated that.
तो 10 साल हो गया सरकार को जी, 10 साल हो गया आपको सांसद बने जी,
और तीसरे कार्यकाल में इस क्षेत्र के हर घर की कीमत 3 गुना कर देंगे।
पर ये तो गलत हो जाएगा ना?
क्यों?
मान लीजिए आपके पूर्वांचल से जो लोग आएंगे यहाँ पे, वो तो कभी घर ही नहीं खरीद पाएंगे।
थोड़ा इसमें कंफ्यूज हो रहा हूँ मैं शायद।
I mean, even if you don't know anything, then don't give an interview. Yeah, he gives interviews, makes an ass of himself, is unself-conscious about it. The responsibility that people have of public life is non-existent. So he himself should not be going into a booth and, forcing a kind of situation where the police has to get him out and people are chanting slogans outside.
No, but the EC, his partisan has played up so much, in social media. There was so much criticism about EC, and then this case in the Supreme Court. So all this put together has put some kind of, pressure, the moral pressure on the ECI, and that is why they came out with the numbers.
Yeah, I think that whole... But so overall...
It worked in a way.
Yeah, but it was a problem of their own making. One is, of course, the logistical exercise, which I understand that Dr. Qureshi says. But the one thing that I found very convincing in the LTA that he spoke to me, when he explained to me exactly how the machines are tested, how voting happens and how they're sealed. I right now, with all the information I have, would find it very difficult to believe a theory where they say that you can fix EVMs. Unless I have some more information, but I don't see how that would be possible. Right?
There are two in the larger historical arc. It means common understanding. If people are not voting for a particular party or candidate over a long period, say 10 years, 20 years, and that candidate is getting elected, then I think there surfaces a kind of perception that this is not wrong. This is not the candidate for which 40% or 30% of us didn't vote. So also the apathy would be very low in countries where rigged elections are there. If the commission does not vote itself, then the apathy was at 10% voting, 50. If the general electorate is convinced that
then that's why they'll participate.
Yeah.
That's
but many other ways
I am giving a very commonsensical over a
large big picture.
There are many other ways of also rigging the election. Like I think this vote suppression. The voters.
No, absolutely. I think
that's very big.
I think that is very real. I think there's so many people who have not been allowed to.
And we are also trying to, work out a story out of it. But Vrinda Gopinath, who has written for us also in the past, she has done a very good article in Wire. She picked up one person who did not find her name in Bombay. She did not find her name in the voters roll, and then she really fought, and now the ECI is in big trouble because it was shown that somebody else showed that she is dead, and that is why her name was struck off.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that's just one person's story.
It has an impact.
It's very interesting.
In fact, I wanted
one of my
to
recommendations.
Suggest to you, we can do it live on Hafta only. I spoke with this gentleman who appeared in the Election Commission awareness video that you must go out and vote, etc. He lives in Alaknanda in GK. And when he went to vote, he could not vote because his name was struck off. He was like, I'm in the video of the Election Commission. They're saying, go out, vote, etc. And I was not allowed to vote. So we should do a story on him also.
Right. You give me his
I'll give you his details. But yeah, I think it is a hugely compromised election, not just for that reason. One is, of course, name being struck off. Now, one of the, helpers of staff of the unskilled labor...
You are convinced that it's a compromised election.
Compromised in the sense that it is not a, what's the word? Level playing field. I don't think it's rigged in the sense of any EVM, but voter suppression happens in different ways. For example, I think you have compromised the process because he says where he lives in Dwarka, in those bastis. So he says there are 4 lanes and the bastis are packed. He says for 4 lanes, we had one booth. And just next to them is where the more affluent people live, the GK types or whatever, the equivalent there. He says there, for each whatever square, they have one booth. So we guys had to stand almost an hour and a half in line to vote. Whereas the richer folk, 10 minutes is their average waiting time. And he said, most of the richer folk vote for the BJP, whereas all the bastis vote for AAP. So there's disincentivized voting. I was like, yeah, that's also. So there are many ways in which they've made it much harder. Like the videos that came out, and this came out in different parts. In fact, in Odisha, Mr. Patra claimed it was working against the BJP because this one particular booth where he claimed that things were strong, voting was suddenly started 2 hours late. So people were waiting. And then they weren't extending it for another 2 hours so that the people who were waiting could vote. So you see these kind of compromises. It compromises the process in that sense is what I meant. Yeah.
No, I'm not seeing it as a conspiration, but it does puzzle me, like in my one of the relatives, there's 6 persons in the family. 4 find their name in the list, the 2 do not find. And I know it for a fact. The 4 vote for one particular party.
Oh my God, really?
Yes,
how about that?
I mean, it
could be a
puzzles me.
coincidence. Yeah, sure. It could be a
puzzles
coincidence.
Me. Maybe somebody at the local level, these people are at work. And then also, we got around a score of, mails from our subscribers who could not find their names.
Yes. In fact, this is, I mean, again, I don't know if it's a function of social media, but the amount of people who have complained about not finding their names on the rolls, I have never encountered the number that all the people who have complained this time.
Names missing, these are regular things. I have never voted in my life. But
this is not good.
So
he is not your role model, young men and women.
But I have a voter card. But yes, so my family members back in Bihar, so they have been for many years saying that किसी का नाम मिला, किसी का नहीं मिला. It also is a function of how active is a party machinery at booth level. They also help you in getting your name listed. And that may be some party machinery which has a very strong organization can get more people enlisted.
Yeah. So on that note, we shall go into the emails and the feedback, criticism, critique that we get. Just to remind all of you, we only read the emails of those who are subscribers. So if you're a subscriber, you can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts, that's with an S, @newslaundry.com, or click on the link in the show notes below. It opens out this window and you can fill in your feedback directly. We would prefer you use that mechanism, but you can also mail us. And if you are mailing us, please keep your email below 150 words so that we can include many more. So let's start with the critique, criticism, accolades. I don't know what all we have in store, but one important one that I want to read. And after I read that email, I actually Googled and I educated myself a little bit. Let me start off with that one first. So this is from Norman Khan. Norman says, "Hello NL team, I hope this message finds you well. I apologize if this email comes across as harsh, but I feel compelled to address an important issue. During the recent Hafta episode, Prateek used a term with strong casteist connotation when referring to Godi media journalists saying unka ravaiya to chhapri hai. Comparing the Godi media to an entire caste is very absurd in itself because no one can be compared to these self-proclaimed hate-mongering, bootlicking expletive." And imagine, I am not reading an expletive, but see, I've become so coy. I was hoping that Abhinandan or someone else would have corrected him, as such language is unbecoming of high standards associated with the organization. The lack of response was disappointing and disheartening. So Norman, first of all, thank you for this email, because it's like this, we learn new things all the time. Just like I changed my mind on space missions. I Googled Chhapri after this, Norman. I wasn't actually aware it's a caste at all. You also, did you know?
No.
So it is actually something that is, crass, not sophisticated, is the slang that is used in. But it also, and it could be the etymology comes from there, jo chhappar lagate the na, the ceilings, the roofs, the people would fix roofs are called chhapris. The jo chhappar theek karta hai, wo the chhapri. So it is actually a caste, although I've never come across it in my life. But
no,
I checked.
It is used as a byword nowadays in so youthful language. It is now used as something who is a wannabe.
Yes.
Aspirational, the new rich who does not have sophistication and is garish, overdressed.
Yeah, so in fact, there's a lot of, so I checked out a lot of meanings.
Connotation is
In
not
fact,
casteist. I'm
No,
very-
no,
I don't- we
its
don't know, it could
origin
be.
is what he is saying, that its origin is casteist, but it has now taken a different form. Like there is a cricketer Hardik Pandya who was booed in IPL this year,
Okay.
and he is also very garish in his dressing, like Caribbean, and this all this earrings and this. So he was in the stadium. He was called Chapri, Chapri, Chapri. So
So the stadium chanted Chapri
Yeah, Chapri. The crowds booed him, Chapri, Chapri.
in Bombay.
In many different venues across
wherever he
India,
went.
because he had replaced Rohit Sharma as Mumbai Indians is
And
captain.
the team wasn't doing well.
So he was booed as Chapri.
So it clearly has a casteist connotation as well. But like Anand says it, but maybe the etymology comes from there, because there were other terms that were also, which the Pakistani cricketer used, which is in Punjab is used as someone who's not well dressed, but it is a very obvious, term that is the slang for Jatav community. So I didn't know. So I do think it is highly likely.
That, again, is explicit. Well, it's a caste, but it is used as like whether I should, but it is always rhymed with chor.
Correct.
And
it was that. So it is, the alliteration is used there. But now there is a YouTuber, now because of when I've dug into this rapid hole of what does Chapri mean, called Chapri. That's his YouTube, this thing. That's his, USP. And he's wearing it like, now I don't know if he's from that caste or he just calls himself that. So it's very hard to say, but I remember when I was younger, I had a friend, he was actually a neighbor. I think they were Parsis from Maharashtra. And his father once told him, hey Rohan, you're bloody gandu, yeah. So I was a little young. I said, dude, your dad is kind of, like, he says, I don't know whether they spoke Marathi. He says, like, where I came from, that was a disrespectful or slang for someone who was gay. He says, in our language, it uses someone who's scared. It has nothing to do with the posterior gun. He says it is, don't be scared. Don't be So I was like, but where does it come from? He says, I don't know, but it is not considered a bad word. So, it can be different from, but it's highly likely it comes from. But yeah, well, thank you, Norman, for that. Then this email is from Ayush. It says, when you hear the Prime Minister of a country like India use words like vote jihad, this is an outright attack on the basic rights of citizens. It seems the frog boiling analogy is applicable to us, as the level of discourse has plummeted over a decade so much that star campaigners of the ruling party seem more like low-level goons. The Election Commission of India's role is appalling in this regard and highly suspicious based on the data it refuses to share. All this makes me wonder why the sudden resignation of the Election Commission, ECI Commissioner, right before election, and if that needs to be investigated further. Is the data going to be collated on election day, or will it be an election that doesn't end on June 4th? Thanks, and would like your brief comment on what is the pulse on the ground if possible. So Ayush, pulse on the ground, though you got to the beginning of the show. The rest of this is...
My ECI should reach out. Simple.
Yeah, but
such issues.
It has really shaken a lot of people's faith in the outcome. And I think that also, this is the first time numbers have gone down. And not just percentage numbers. There's certain phases where absolute numbers went down. Because when the population is going up, can say percentage went down, but absolute numbers may have gone up. There are a few phases and a few constituencies, which was Express had done it, where the absolute numbers have gone down. And I think that is a telltale sign of people's faith in election.
But it is still it's still strong numbers. Like if you compare with Europe, democracies in Europe and this, in Indian voting percentage is still very healthy. But also a lot of factors could be there. Heat could be one of them.
Of course, absolutely. Then I'll read a few emails. There are these two emails that are 282 words and 290 words. And another one, Noman has written one of 242 words also. So Noman, you have completely shattered the word limit because you have put two emails. But let me read the ones that are slightly shorter. Rider 1484 says, hi, long time subscriber here. Enjoying your election coverage videos, especially of Srinivas and Jain. Can you please elaborate on what Santosh was talking about? The famous change in the theory of Pranoy and Shekhar. Which election and what was the context? Also, can't really say how much I love Nuisance and how much Manisha and her team has taken it to the next level. Thank you, Ryder. I think what he was talking about was what Santosh was talking about.
Santosh Desai.
Yeah, but what Santosh was talking about? Did he mention some other Santosh?
No.
I don't recall that. But on the Pranoy and Shekhar, it was, I think, the Bihar election, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Where they were talking and the trends were showing a Nitish victory.
No, BJP and NDA victory.
NDA victory. And that
time Nitish was with Lalu.
With Lalu.
In 2015.
Yeah. And suddenly they started telling us, the viewers, why this, in very informed, obvious terms, this has happened obviously because of this. And suddenly the trend emerged that no, actually Nitish and Lalu were winning. They turned on the dime and immediately started telling us that why this has happened. So that's what he was talking about. Then Karthik says, while I listen to Abhinandan, it's like listening to my inner thoughts coming back to me. Despair is a bigger killer than loss, and Modi's success starts with total capitulation of Hindutva's opponents to despair. I'm thankful for the Nuisance show that helps me avoid the same feeling. I pointed out to my friends that this is our version of Saturday Night Live. Keep going strong. Thank you, Karthik. I think we get so absorbed by the hardships or the pressures of the present, we tend to forget the happiness or the hardships of the past. Just for our audience, when we had decided to start Newslaundry, this was, I think, 2011 when the idea was forming and we were saying, let's put a website. And many of the ideas that I was talking about, and I had a lot of friends in journalism at that time. I'm talking about 2011. This is way before Jan Lokpal movement, etc., etc. I remember so many of my journalist friends said, don't do it. You have no idea how they'll come after you. And that was not Mr. Modi's government. These were journalists who were in responsible primetime slots. So I completely agree with you, buddy. We get so overtaken by despair. Oh, this is the worst it's ever been. There's been shit in the past. There'll be shit in the future. But there's also been good things in the past and also be good things in the future. I think what is amazing to celebrate, at least for me, is surviving 12 years without ads. Yeah. People can say good things. It is a miracle. Yeah. And that is enough for us to celebrate and say that we are unstoppable, which is what, I said in that note when we won that wonderful Vanifra award. Then UM says, as I step out to go vote, big kudos to the NL TNM team for truly fantastic election coverage. The volume, diversity, quality, coverage is top notch. I was initially skeptical about how extensively NL would be able to cover something as large as the Lok Sabha election, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. NL has shown that one doesn't need 24/7 coverage as long as we have a few good reports every day. That's enough for someone wanting to stay updated. Take a bow, truly impressed. Take a bow, sir.
Thank you.
Your team has done a fantastic job. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for your support. And on election results day, live coverage of the 5 organizations. To tell your friends and relatives to contribute to that as well. Now let me read one of the very long mails by Shashank Reddy of 282 words, where Shashank has completely ignored our word count request. Hello team, I'm a subscriber and frequent listening to your podcasts. NL Hafta and NL Charcha. Will be going for my masters soon in Australia. Hey, down under, mate. Thank you for the great work you're doing, and will still try to pay for NL subscription when I'm a student and doing a part-time job. Thank you so much, Shashank. In case your job doesn't pay you enough, and be honest about it, mail me abhinandansekhri@gmail.com. For your student period, we will give you a free subscription on the promise, which again is on trust. When you get a job, you will buy your own subscription and buy someone else one as well. I had a few suggestions which you can consider if possible. Can there be a podcast only subscription similar to how Economist has? I love going for walks and I like listening to podcasts, so you only subscribe for that. We've actually thought of this. In a month or two, we're having a very large strategy meet on what are the major significant changes we can do, which one of the things we're going to be discussing is tiered subscription. We haven't come to any conclusions yet. So if you have any ideas, please mail, because they will all be considered in like a 2-3 day strategy meeting all the heads of department will be having. Then Shashank goes on to say, I'm a South Indian from Bangalore trying to improve my Hindi speaking skills. I frequently listen to NL Charcha. Well, you are most South Indians says I'm सीखेंगे ही नहीं. While listening to Charcha, I sometimes don't understand the complicated Hindi words. So I have to pause and Google the word. Can panelists, while using such a word, use English word right after so weak Hindi speakers? Yes. For example, if they use Vipaksh, they can say opposition and continue discussion. Alright, Shashank, we shall pass on this suggestion to Atul. And on Hafta 485, there was a short discussion on FPTP, that's first past the post system, and PR. What is PR?
Proportional representation.
Proportional representation. I feel many of my friends who are urban, educated, middle class voters have no idea of these terms, how the election work. Can NL consider a short explainer on the series? That's a good idea, actually. The different...
It's like the Constitution series.
Different ways that democracy actually works. That's not a bad idea. Actually, this would be a good idea before the election. We should make a note of this. So, which we are doing, but thank you so much. Then, Dimple Mehta has also completely shattered the word limit. Dimple says, I'm writing to express my heartfelt appreciation for the exceptional effort your team has put into covering recent election. As a subscriber to your app, I've found your content both enlightening and engaging. A special note of thanks is due for your weekly podcast and Newslaundry nuisance. My husband, who previously avoided news due to the chaos and sensationalism, is now a dedicated listener. Thank you, Dimple, for making your husband a dedicated listener. Make him a dedicated subscriber also. Through your insightful coverage and critical analysis, his eyes have been opened to the extent of propaganda that has infiltrated society. While he has become somewhat disheartened about the state of democracy, thanks for that, he deeply appreciates the clarity and truth that your platform provides. We both feel elections are often overshadowed by caste and religious-based politics. Some efforts are put to highlight critical issues like unemployment, inflation, and the abysmal state of education. However, we would greatly appreciate if you could delve into the looming climate crisis, deforestation, floods, droughts, etc. Yeah, that is something that is a constant thing that we are figuring out. You know, actually, Dimple, one of the challenges is there are very few dedicated climate journalists. And when you commission a climate series, you have to do it to someone who really knows the subject. It's like, it's not information neutral or knowledge neutral. Like, if you are commissioning a business story, you have to give it to someone who knows how to read balance sheets or annual reports. And it's surprising how few climate journalists there are actually who are dedicated. But we're trying. That's something that's on our plate all the time. Norman, I've read one of your mails. Your 242-word mail will have to wait for next time. Prasad says, in reference to Abhinandan mentioning Sanjay Dutt's interview in discussion of low voter turnout, I completely agree. Mumbai people are less politically aware, but 90% of the people do not live a life of luxury that Bollywood stars live. I have no idea why Mumbai is seen as Bollywood. People are relatively poor, especially in suburbs compared to some other cities. Voters not living in the city could be a reason, as I myself am living in Bhopal currently. I know many others who are not in the city. Mumbai has been in the center of many Ambedkarite movements, which happens even now, but they're not as glamorous as sitting in front of India Gate and hence ignored by mainstream media. Very true, Prasad. Maharashtra, in fact, has been the forefront of much of the caste reform movements in India. So I'll read one more email and we'll save the rest for next time when Manisha's here. Uttank Kaushik says, regarding the Pune Porsche case, I wonder if we can take solace if the accused is tried as an adult and is sentenced to punishment he deserves. From Ram Rahim's parole to Sasikala's privileges in prison to early release of convicts due to good behavior, we have numerous examples demonstrating that rich and influential offenders do not actually have a tough life in jail. I agree that getting offenders convicted is the first step, but that wouldn't necessarily mean justice. True, Uttank. I think that's a big problem with our justice system. And again, I think right now also I don't know what the official constitutional position is, but even when I talk to lawyers and people who are in the midst of this, there doesn't seem to be any consensus on, is our justice system reformatory or punishment? What's it called? Like, is it for punishing a person? Is it revenge motivated, or is it to reform the guy?
Retribute.
Yeah, if it's reformative, then, I mean, theoretically, I get that poor people do not get that, but theoretically, if someone has behaved well in prison, irrespective of his financial situation, I think that person deserves an early, that is the whole thing about believing people can change. I believe that is what a justice system should be, which was what, in fact, we'll put a short clip of that. I think it's behind the paywall, but in fact, when we had interviewed Sunetra and Sunil Gupta of Black Warrant, that was a book about his years in Tihar jail as a jailer and his interactions. Like, he started crying when he mentioned Afzal Guru, etc. He said that guy who shot Jessica Lal, he served, I don't know how many years he served, but he was given at one stage parole to take an exam. And he, I think, did get slightly early release. I mean, not majorly, but I think a year or so before. Now, Sunetra, I remember in that interview, had said that was one case they disagreed because they were writing the book together. And she was not at all sympathetic to him because I remember the media, it was an outrage that, he shot a young girl at a party. And Sunil Gupta, I remember, said that may be true and, his family tried to bypass this just. But as long as he was there, when I was there, if there was anything that was needed, to teach, because a lot of the convicts were uneducated. There were other, things that were required, and he would really help out. So do I judge him on that, or do I judge him for what he did outside? And I get his logic, but I also get Sunetra's logic. So I think it's not an easy choice, but no matter how horrible someone, even our
names like Ram Rahim, that raises.
Yeah, I think Ram. Actually, there's so many.
He has been acquitted by
recently,
but in a different case.
In the murder case of one.
In one murder.
There are many cases. He
There's
will be in
murder,
jail only.
Murder of a journalist. He's still there.
And also sexual harassment, rape.
Rape. True rapes.
Right. So we'll read the rest of the emails later. You can mail in, like I said, at podcasts@newslaundry.com, but only for a subscriber. But please keep them below 150 words so we can include more. And the recommendations for the week, let's start with you, Anand. What are you going to recommend?
There was a discussion on the plight of working class people, particularly who do physical labor in the hot sun. So I can recommend something in Hindi also, because people recommend Hindi movies. So So there is a poem by Nirala, Wo Todti Patthar. So it is about he beautifully describes a woman who is working in scorching heat, and also he talks about inequalities. So वो तोड़ती पत्थर देखा उसे इलाहाबाद के पथ पर. So he is passing by and he describes the heat also. So it's one of the rare literary creations in Indian literature in which heat has been described. He takes a lot of paragraphs to just describe the heat. Yes, prior hui dophar means in the morning it looks like afternoon, and then how so. And also that women who is working in that. So that is one recommendation. Second is that since we are living, I personally think we live in an age of overcovered poles, because pole has become a kind of a spectator sport. So it is just, and also a lot of
a reality show,
and assessments like final of a sporting event has to take place. So how to know its result beforehand? By talking to this, by talking to that and that. So and that overshadows a lot of important news over a long news cycle of 1.5 months. And these two fire incidents that we talked about,
Rajkot and Delhi.
So you should read about these reports. Also how it violates the National Building Code of 2016. There was a fire incident in Delhi. There was very disturbing images of students jumping out of a building in a coaching institute in Mukherjee Nagar. It didn't have even a single fire extinguisher. So students were jumping out of, say, third floor, fourth floor, and somewhere. So these are very something
that overlooked because of election excitement.
It would have been a major news if elections were not there, and that too in Vadodara and Delhi within 1 or 2 days. So you should read about these in newspaper reports.
Right. Vadodara and Rajkot.
Rajkot, sorry.
So the political stories, one by Vrinda Gopinath. See, there is people have become so, the institutions have become so insensitive. So Vrinda Gopinath has brought out, a story of a person who is fighting for her right to vote, and her name was struck off, and she wrote this story in the WA, for the WA. So this is one. Second case of insensitivity is our Basant's report, on this woman who complained about the posters being, posted outside her house, and it is all religion, and she had read it somewhere in the ECI guidelines that you cannot ask for, votes in the name of religion. So in that spirit, she filed a complaint, and her complaint was rejected by ECI summarily. So that is a beautiful story, by video story. In fact, I would suggest that Basant of late, his stories in Haryana and Punjab, we should put up all those stories. He's done some wonderful videos, wonderful reporting. So, and the third is, this an old classic movie, Paris, Texas, 1984 movie, which won, I think, BAFTA award. So I happened to, see, I saw it last week. Beautiful movie. Of Wim Wenders is the director. It's a very good movie, English movie, of course, and available on Mubi. And the fourth is, there is, since we have spoken about Punjab, and I'm sorry that I think I mixed up the data on Punjab. There is an article by Pramod Kumar. Punjab, unlike other states, has been known to resist a national electoral wave.
Oh yeah, that's today, I think.
Today.
Yeah, I saw that.
In the Indian Express.
Express.
I think he has explained it.
I think there was another very interesting article, I think it was in the Times of India on Sunday, on why Punjab's voting, it said 7 reasons why Punjab doesn't vote like the rest of the country.
Yes.
It was there.
Right,
So it's the uniqueness of Punjab is there.
Also, one thing about asking for votes in name of religion. In 2019, there was a case in Supreme Court, and because Yogi Adityanath had made this Bajrangbali and Ali comment, and Mayawati had sought vote from Muslim voters directly by appealing. So the lawyer argued, and he showed the documents, that the ECI recognizes 2 parties. One is a big party, Shiromani Akali Dal, and in Kerala there is IUML, Muslim League. And in both, in their document only, they say that they said we will promote the interest of this religion.
So yeah, I mean, I really don't think that's something that can actually be implemented or enforced. So I have 2 suggestions. One is, when you were talking about Suryakant Tripathi Nirala's poem, Ki Pathar Todti Path Par, I was just thinking how geography and climate impact literature. Like the first thing that came to me was Wordsworth's poem Solitary Reaper, which is such a beautiful rendition, which you can imagine, Scotland, England, pata nahi kahan ka, mostly all the lands are the same, wahi ka. That, behold her single in the fields, matlab, it's a very pretty picture he's painting, whereas and this reminds you of Sanjay Rajoura's stand-up act, where he said, people keep saying Delhi people are horribly, so it's not our fault. It is the weather. If you were in this weather, even you'd be as aggressive as we are.
These are like psychological effect of heat on road rage. It is
horrible.
documented. It's well documented.
That in the summer it'll be
psychiatrists
hard.
have studied it.
Driving these days, and especially, I mean, you ask me because I drive 1.5 hours to come to the office, 3 hours in the car.
Because of the...
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, and people are
weather has a lot to do
so
with it.
aggressive on the roads.
Absolutely.
In DTC buses, crowded buses during May and June, the frequency of fights would be far more.
Then, no, absolutely right. So my two recommendations. One is, I found this fascinating. It was in the Express. I read it a few days ago. I think this was yesterday. Why can accused persons in prison contest polls but not vote? Because it's very interesting that this Amritpal
That was an explainer.
It was, it was an explainer. So I thought that was quite nice. And another thing which, I don't think anecdotes is a good way of actually putting forward any theory or any analysis. But at the same time, outright rejection is also something that I don't. And this is a very interesting short podcast in The Indicator from Planet Money. It says using anecdotes to predict recessions. Because I remember even during Lehman, many of the telltale signs were anecdotal. They weren't data-backed. Whereas the more data-backed hedge funds and all were saying there's no risk to the system. So it's just an interesting perspective. I'm not saying anecdotes are compelling evidence and that data has no value. I think, of course, data has way more value because it gives macro trends. But depending on the anecdote, I don't think they should just be completely rejected either. And I think that's this podcast is a good indicator of that. On that note, I'd like to remind everybody to subscribe and pay to keep news free, and do watch our live election coverage on the 4th of July from 8 in the morning till as long as it takes. Scroll, News Minute, The Wire, The Caravan and Newslaundry. These 5 organizations together will give you analysis, news on the results on the day that the results are announced. Do contribute, because then we can continue to do stuff under way less influence than advertising funded media can. We'd like to thank our sound recordist Anil and our producer Aryan. Have a great weekend. We shall see you next week. Bye-bye.